Hello everybody and welcome back. I want to thank you all for joining me. Today's video is going to be about something that happened to me about 15 years ago. This was a life-changing experience, something that was so crazy and so chaotic. The few times I do tell this story, and when it happened, when I tried telling people this story, it was a story that was very hard to believe. But I will say that this is 100% true, 100% accurate. And I'm telling this and I'm sharing this because, one, I'm closing out this chapter in my life. And this file is just one of many files, medical files, that I have on this situation that happened. And it's time for me to let go of that situation. And so I thought that it would help because I know that there are many people out there that have probably gone through something similar and maybe afraid to share this or share their experience. But as you guys know, I am not. So back in 2010, I met a couple, Nikki and Marlena, and I'm going to use their names, not because that's their actual names, because that was their fake identities that they gave me. But at the time, I didn't know it. And so this couple, I was a captain and running a softball team at the time at one of the local leagues here in West Palm Beach. And this couple, Nikki and Marlena, came and Marlena joined the softball team. And at first, everything seemed very normal. Everything seemed just typical. Softball girls having fun. If you're familiar with sports, especially in softball, we like to go out. We like to be a family. We play together. We have fun together. We eat together. We do all these things. And for many of us, we bond together, and it becomes more than just softball. It becomes kind of like your family. And this situation started out no difference. So we became very close. And over the 10 months that we hung out, there was a lot of situations where everything was normal. Everything seemed normal. They seemed trustworthy. There was trust that was built slowly over time. I was at the time, I really wouldn't call it a relationship, but I was kind of seeing someone that was living with me that really treated me very poorly, was very emotionally and mentally abusive towards me and sometimes physically. And I was going through school at the time, and I was really stressed out, and a bunch of things happened during this time. And I won't get into all of it, but my mind wasn't fully there. Plus, I was a lot younger. I was still a little bit naive. Even though I grew up in a lot of violence and stuff, there was still some naivety to me because when you're a person that has some type of moral code, your brain doesn't think about the things that I'm going to tell you about. And a lot of it is going to seem crazy and insane. And still to this day, sometimes my brain struggles to wrap itself around the ideas that happen. But over time, everything seemed fine. And then one day, Nikki and Marlena came to my house and sat me down in my healing room where I saw my clients and patients and everything. And sat me down very seriously and told me with straight faces and that Marlena has cancer. And not just any cancer, stage 4 brainstem glioma. And if you know how serious that is a very serious form of cancer. And I was shocked. And Marlena looked very sad and started crying a little bit. Nikki lost it, started crying, and they really played the game that Marlena had stage 4 brainstem glioma. And so this was a very emotional and very serious situation as I took it. It was something that I take very seriously, and I would never fathom people lying about this. So I believed them. And after that, more lies started to come in. When I first got to know these two, Marlena told me that she was in the military. And not just in the military, but an admiral in the Navy. And at first, I kind of doubted it because I was like, okay, well, she's overweight and she doesn't look healthy. And she doesn't look like the typical military person or especially an admiral. But hey, who knows? I'm not in the military. I kind of second guessed it for a while. But then after just 10 months of knowing them and seeming like they wouldn't lie to me, I kind of bought into it and said, okay, well, it is what it is. And that. So as time went on, there was a bunch of military stories that started coming up and a bunch of lies, and the game started being played. And one of them was that she had a brother, and this brother ended up getting killed in action. And at the time, the United States was still looking for Osama bin Laden and trying to get him and trying to or unalive him. Sorry, trying to unalive him. And and when that story happened, she used that story to say that her brother was involved in that. And someone kept calling her, acting like her brother, making it seem like he was involved, and telling her military secrets and things that were going on. Well, supposedly they unalived him, and there was this big mess. There was this funeral that happened and all sorts of crazy things. And I really felt bad for this. And this created a nonstop drama in my life. There was always some emergency going on, some family thing, some military thing, and at the time I didn't know, because it seemed like real emergencies all the time, but come to find out they were always fake. One day she showed up in bandages around her head and in wheelchairs, saying that she was getting chemo treatment and radiation and going and doing all this military stuff. And slowly it started to, because my mind wasn't in a place where it was really structured at the time. It was really fragmented because I was dealing with trauma. I was dealing with that relationship and school and a bunch of other things that were going on. But my mind wasn't fully together. So at the time, I started to buy into this. And after 10 months of knowing these people, going to dinner with them, I had no reason to distrust them. So a lot of people, as I'm telling you this, you're going to sit there and ask you, well, Raina, how did you believe this? And how did all this stuff happen? But when you buy into people, even at a young age, and when your mind's not fully there, sometimes the odd things get by you, and this is okay for, and I know many of you have gone through, and I want to show you that it's okay for something like this happen. So anyways, long story short, this happened over probably about a year. All these fake emergencies, these fake military situations, and even they offered me a military job. And this was part of the scam, because at the time I had medical licenses, I have a house, I had a brand new car at the time, I had a lot of assets going on. And the long run is they slowly befriended me, and they slowly acted like everything was normal. And then after a long period of time is when the lies started to come in. And like I said, the first lie was the cancer. And then so once I got emotional about that and I became focused on helping Marlena cure her cancer, that's when the manipulations really started to come in. So then out of nowhere, I was offered this military job, and they drew up this wonderful fake contract. It was thick. It was a really thick contract. This isn't it. These are all the medical files on Marlena's cancer and everything that happened. And so I sent it to my mom and had her look at a lawyer, and the lawyer came back and said, well, it looks real, but there's a lot of mistakes and wrong names, and where it says her, it says him, and different things, and there was just a bunch of errors in it. But other than that, they were like, well, it seems kind of real. So before that happened, I started to sit there and say, well, okay, well, before I sign it, because they wanted me to sign over my house to the military and my car and everything. And in exchange, that they were going to give me my own house down in another part of Florida, and I was going to get military cars and this whole big contract. And so luckily, I'm smart enough to say, okay, well, let's have a meeting with these people. And every time we were supposed to talk on the phone, every time we were supposed to meet up in person, some extreme catastrophic event came up where they always had to cancel on me at the last second. And it was always through text. And so I started to get frustrated, and I started telling Marlena, and I was like, hey, what's going on here? Because I don't understand. So like, every time that this is happening, all of a sudden something happens and I can't talk to these. I'm starting to doubt this. And of course, they brought in more manipulation. They brought in the mom, the whole family, everything was in on this. And so after that, what ended up happening was they started to dump more of these medical issues on me. They tried to divert me from thinking onto that, recognizing that there was something wrong with the military contract and the job that they were offering me. So it became really chaotic, and all these files started to happen. And during that time, I remember what really caught the trigger, because the military thing kind of started to wake me up. And what happened after that was they gave me some files on, and I said, "Well, where's all your charts? Where's all your scans, your MRIs and everything showing all this stuff?" And she sent it to me in paper form from the University of Miami, and it was paper. It was printed out paper, like someone printed it out from a printer, and there was no medical ID on it. There was no patient ID. There was nothing on that. And I asked her, I was like, "Marlena, where's the CD? Where's the patient ID? Where's all this stuff?" And of course, I got the runaround. And so something clicked in me. And remember, guys, there are so many situations that I really want to keep this video short, but I want to emphasize like the craziness that this extent went to, and I'm trying to keep this as short as possible. But what happened was I sat there and I questioned it, and I just shut my mouth for a minute, because I said, something's not right here. And after about a year of this going on, because remember, this is a long time of year of manipulation. They were pinning our friends against each other and making it seem like we were doing stuff and weren't, and just really chaotic. Like if I went into the whole story, it would take at least an hour or two for me to go through the whole story. So I called the University of Miami, and I asked them about their patient, Marlena, and I asked them for the doctor, and there was like, "There's no doctor here by this name, and we don't have a patient by this name." And so I asked them to do more research, and they asked around, they went through their file system, and they said no. So I started calling up all these other hospitals that supposedly she went to, and nobody ever heard of her, and nobody ever understood. So I said, "Okay, well, I'm getting these scans from a printer, and with no patient ID, and nobody's ever heard of her, so something must be up." And so it was crazy, because every time they came over to this house, it was this whole elaborate thing. Nikki was crying. Nikki was trying to be supportive. It was a really thought out, well planned plan by their whole family. And every time I was in session with Marlena, Nikki would go through my house, through my file systems, and steal my licenses and take copies of them and bring them back, because I would never know that they were gone, because I would never suspect it. And so they stole all my medical licenses, all my diplomas, everything, and all my private information, my social security, everything. And they targeted myself and my identity. But that was not to be known yet. So as I realized that this was fake, and they were, and I started asking. I was like, "Well, Marlena, why can't anybody tell me about you?" Then all of a sudden, a softball gig came up where we got sponsored by Mikan and Dee Marini and all these things, and we were going to open. And so like the list of things just kept piling on. And what ended up happening was, finally I realized that I was being played. Finally I woke up out of the emotional trance, because like I said, you're probably thinking, well, how did all this happen to you? And it seems crazy from an outside point, especially me only mentioning a few of 1,000 things that happened. But when you're in it and you buy into somebody and you believe them, and they have no reason, and you've known them for almost a year before anything, and there's no red flags, once you emotionally buy into somebody, a lot of times you dismiss things, because you're like, okay, well, that doesn't make sense. Maybe I'm not hearing it right, or maybe they're not remembering it right, or maybe this story is kind of a little fabricated, but that's okay. So I started realizing that I was being played. And so now, instead of them hunting me, I became the hunter. And I started trapping them, and started creating scenarios where I can force them into lies, to trap them into lies. And I just kept adding up information after information after information. Like I said, I got many of these files, and electronic ones too. And so I started to build as much concrete evidence as I could. And finally, I pulled Marlena, after months of this, I pulled Marlena into this. And let me tell you, I lost a lot of friends. I had to end up quitting my softball league and dismantling the team, all because of this. And there was other girls involved in this as well, which changed their life forever, and I'll get into that in a second. But after the lies started to fall apart, and I got enough evidence, I called Marlena over here, and I forced her to present this money and all this stuff from DeMarini and this proof through the University of Miami and all these other hospitals, and she couldn't. And that's when I called her on her stuff, and I said, and I looked at her straight in her face. I said, you know, Marlena, I have never ever met somebody, and let alone a whole family, that would go to the lengths that you would go to trick somebody, to fool somebody, to scam somebody out of their home, out of their car, out of their identity and everything. Because by then I realized that a lot of my stuff was copied, and that. And so after everything fell apart, I outed them. I went on social media. I went through the Tri-County area, and I let them know that everybody is going to see all these files, this one plus the other ones that I have, and all the electronic documents and everything. And I posted it all over social media. I let everyone know in the Tri-County area of Southeast Florida who they were. So badly that they ended up moving to California. And that's where they're still at now. And it got to the point where I had to call the NCIS of Miami. They took all this information. They took all these documents. It was just insane. And I know it sounds insane. And again, I'm shortening all this up because I don't want to make this into a 2-hour video. But what ended up happening was, for many years, it destroyed me because I was already in a fragile place. For one of the friends that I had, which I won't mention her name, it destroyed her completely. Still to this day, I talk to her sister. I actually work with her at the spa that I'm working at right now, and her sister says she's still never the same. She's mean, she's angry, she's violent, she drinks all the time, and the person that she was before this, she was a totally nice person. Yeah, she had some stuff going on, but she was young. She was barely 21 at the time, and it messed her mind up so bad that she never recovered 15 years later. And for many of us who experienced this, it destroyed our friendships. Many of us went our separate ways. And I remember meeting up with one of these girls, and when they saw my face, the pain and suffering of everything that happened came rushing back, where they were just like, I can't look at you. I can't be friends with you. And I knew it wasn't personal because my face reminded me of what happened to them and the chaos it caused. And so for many of you, might have been scammed yourself. You might have people in your life that maybe it's not so intensely crazy. Maybe, I mean, this is something most of people, when I tell them the full story, they're like, Raina, that sounds crazy. That sounds insane. That sounds like something you'd see on 2020 or Dateline, some crazy story that you're like, is that real? And I still question it. I still sometimes sit there and say, yeah, that actually happened, because it was just so intense. And again, remind you, this happened over a long period of time, several years. So the buildup was very slow, and that's how a lot of people get you. If they would have come in bum rushing me with a bunch of lies, I would have red flagged it immediately. Say, okay, these people are full of it. But because they built up trust slowly, and they took their time, and they were manipulative about it, and they made me feel like they were my friends. They came to my house. We shared meals. We shared late nights together. We went to the bar scene, clubs, everything. We went out to dinner. We went out to just go hiking and all sorts of different things. I spent a lot of time with these people. So because I've never had an experience like this, and maybe you either, I never thought anything different. And it took me many years to recover from this, and I'll be honest with you, because it was hard for me to trust people. And if you're going through something similar or have gone through something similar, it's going to be a hard road for you to learn to trust people all over again. Because when something this extreme happens in your life, it's devastating. It's devastating to every part of your psyche, because it's not just lies. It's long-term manipulation. It's a distrust so deep, so manipulative in your body, in your mind, that it's hard for a lot of people to recover. And that's why I told you, my one friend, 15 years later, still hasn't recovered. Doesn't want anything to do with me. Totally destroyed her life. Just can't get out of it. For me, it took me about 5 years to go through a lot of mental anguish, a lot of emotional anguish, a lot of therapy, a lot of trying to understand why somebody would do this to get my house. And I mean, to say that they were an admiral in the military, and to create fake family members, like a fake brother. And one of the other things that they actually that I just remembered, and this was the other part, is they actually had this whole meeting where her wife Nikki staged this thing with her where they were going to this military court for something that her brother did, who her fake brother did, and who was unalived in action. And um and 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 then the next thing I know, I'm getting texts. Oh my God, they're shooting at her, and they're doing all these different things, and it's crazy. And I was thinking, oh my God, what's going on? This is how crazy it got. That they were creating fake scenarios of courtrooms and military trying to unalive her and do all these different things. And I just look at it now, and I look at this file system, and I'm at peace with it. I am. I made peace with it a long time ago. Matter of fact, I haven't thought about this in 15 years until earlier last night I had a dream about it. And I realized that it was just time to let all this go, because that vibration, that person, everything. But what I want to say is this, is that this was one of the greatest lessons to ever happen to me in my life. And I'm grateful and I'm thankful for it. Why? Because even though it was one of the most painful lessons in my life, it woke me up. Because of this deceit and the lengths that they went to lie and manipulate and create, to a whole family to sit down and actually create scenarios to lie about, to trick other people into signing over their homes and cars and everything. And even they opened up a massage and a spa called Heaven on Earth Massage and Spa, with my name and my licenses and everything. And that, but their pictures, because someone called me one day, or they texted me, and they're like, Raina, I didn't know you opened up a spa and that. And I was like, what are you talking about? I didn't open up a spa. Yeah, you did. And it's all over the internet and everything. And I'm like, what are you talking about? They took pictures of the building. They showed me the website. And yeah, Marlena had her picture with my name, my ID, my license, all my medical stuff, everything. And she opened up a spa and bought a $500,000 house in Wilton Manors under my name. So I had to get all that taken care of. But it opened me up. And I'm grateful for it, because now I'm able to see people so clearly. Anytime, and I was always good at seeing people lying, but like I said, during this time it was really difficult because my head wasn't in the right space. And if you got tricked like this is okay too, because that means you're a decent person, that your mind isn't going to formulate some type of chaotic or deceptive scenario to cheat people out of things. And it hurts. It really did. This really hurt me, because I felt not just betrayed about my stuff, but betrayed because I took them into my home and I trusted them, and they ate with me, and we cried together and shared so many experiences. And man, and that you would lie about having such a deadly disease that so many people suffer from. And that was really hard for me to understand at the time. And now I'm okay with it, because now it's made me a much clearer, focused person, and it's helped me a lot. I've saved people from other scams. I recognized it right away. I was like, as soon as they started talking to me, I was like, wait, what's going on in your life? They started telling me. I was like, whoa, stop. You're getting scammed. You're getting, and sure enough, they were. And still to this day, it happens. But I wanted to tell you because it made me stronger. It may be painful for you. It may be very detrimental to your mental and your emotional psyche. But if you push through it and you work through it and you try to understand why it happened to you, it's going to become the greatest gift you'll ever receive. At the time, I hated Marlena and Nikki, and I wanted so many bad things to happen to them because I was hurt and I was betrayed. Now I look at this file folder and I look at all these medical documents and all these fake things and all the stuff that's on my computers and file storages and everything. And I'm grateful for this experience. So I really want you guys to understand that through any type of chaos, any type of trauma, any type of lies, deceit, no matter how painful it is, there's always something that's going to make you a stronger, more focused, more and I don't want to say better because there's no right or there's no better or worse, and but it's gonna make you someone who's able to see through the illusions that others cannot, and one day it's gonna play in your favor. So, all right, guys, it's already 25 minutes. This is the longest video I've ever done. Since these videos, I don't want to keep you any longer. I hope that you stayed with it. If you guys have any questions or like to talk about your experiences, please email me. I would love to hear it. I really would. I'd love to hear your comments as well. But yeah, just take the lessons that is, no matter how painful, and make yourself stronger. All right, everybody, have a wonderful night.